Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Glad to be here with you guys. I have a good friend of mine, Annette Giacomazzi, who is also the owner of CastCoverz, and she makes products. She's been a client of mine for, I think it's 5 years now, of
Mhm.
managing all of her accounting and helping just keep her books in order. And so
Mhm.
I'm really excited to have her today talk to you guys about profit first, the ups and downs of being a business owner in the e-commerce world as it's ever changing, and just all the new things that she is doing for her clients. So thank you
Oh,
so much for being here. I appreciate it.
thank you, Christy. I'm excited about our conversation. And yeah, Christy knows everything about my business. And that's the way a good bookkeeper should. They should ask the questions that you don't necessarily even know what to ask. They should dive a little deeper. And Christy's been doing that for me.
It's been fun. I've
Mhm.
enjoyed it. So if you want to kind of just give people just a breakdown of CastCoverz, how you got started, how you got into the e-commerce world with it and the multi-channels, all of that.
So CastCoverz is a fun and functional products for the orthopedic patients. We manufacture and have been in business almost 17 years. We manufacture in the United States, always have, and I've always been a huge advocate for that. So that's interesting timing this year, of course. And so if you've ever broken a bone, an arm or a leg, and you needed a cast or a brace or a sling, we make covers for that. And so we take you've been fixed by the orthopedic surgeon, but often the orthopedic surgeons fix and forget. We transition to helping you feel better so you heal better. And it's been a great business up and down. And the business started because my daughter was then 10 years old and had just broken her sixth bone, her humerus. When it wasn't humorous. And she felt so betrayed by her body once again. And my cooking was no longer a comfort. And she got the butt ugliest cast from the emergency room. I mean, it was, and we'd sadly become experienced with casts by that time. And so I had to do something for her. So I just pulled out my sewing machine and created just took a piece of fabric, made a cover for a cast and a sling and another set and another set. People started stopping us on the street and ta-da, became the accidental entrepreneur. And it's been great ups and downs. I've gone from sewing, having people sew for me in their own home, to having my own shop, to pivoting, to getting sewing contractors, to now I have larger sewing contractors across the country. And we are international, worldwide. I didn't know it at the time, but I created a category and we're still the leader in the category. We jumped on Amazon, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, maybe. And I've got stories galore about that.
was and I think that was one of the best things, right? Kind of getting on there to really get your name out there.
No, it was actually knowing that the buyers' habits were changing. They started to go to this marketplace. And interestingly, one of my employees at the time asked, will this cannibalize our sales on our main website? And it was a great question. However, I knew we had to be at that marketplace because in today's contemporary selling environment, that's where people go. I do see it as a kind of a traffic play as well. So I know people that are on Amazon, if they're computer savvy at all, they'll come check out my website because we're branded. We're not resellers. We manufacture our own products. And then I also know that people who come to our site go to Amazon to look for the possibly lowest price and or faster shipping. So that's one thing that I'm glad that we pivoted. However, they are the bully in the playground. It's the only playground in town. You have to be there and the bully's always there. So you have to accommodate and pivot a lot.
Yeah. They always got their rules are ever changing and you got to be able
Always,
to keep up with that
always. I
so
often say
quickly.
I often say that new people have come on board and they have to protect their territory. And so they change something without real thought about how this affects. And the reason I say that is because often they make a change, it's a big change, and then 3 to 6 months later, they retract that change because it just didn't work. It wasn't thought through.
Yeah. And then I would say once you kind of move from there and you've moved into the some of the wholesale business as well, and what has that looked like?
So so actually it's interesting you follow that from Amazon, because I was really struggling at the beginning with Amazon and their fees. And then it was probably only about 12 to 18 months I realized, wait a minute, this is a wholesale channel. And so as soon as I made that distinction that Amazon is a wholesale channel, then I knew how to price properly. I knew how to view the opportunity with Amazon. And what it's done is it's been able to fine tune my pricing so that I know how to price for other, like B2B, which in my case would be either orthopedic surgeon offices or surgical centers or medical retailers, pharmacies. Those are my B2B wholesale options.
Yeah.
And other marketplaces, Etsy, Pinterest, TikTok, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. All the socials, right?
Yes, yes.
Makes it,
yes.
yeah.
Well, and what's interesting in my case, it's changed a little bit, but because we have the word broken bone or fracture, we're often kicked off of social marketplaces because they think I actually got banned from Facebook 3 times because they thought I was in the S&M category. And so there's really no way we can describe our product without saying, did you break your arm or fracture your leg, or do you have a cast, and that type of thing. And so we just kind of gave up. That's changing a little bit recently. So we'll try it again, but that was always and that was universal with all social media sites. We had a very hard time saying, and so it's hard to find people. So as you know, like in social channels, you look for the like people, that like certain things. Well, in our case, it's you broke a bone or you're preparing for surgery. So you have to be able to find those people at that time that happened. And so that's the uniqueness of the business. As all business owners think we are unique.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because I always say the unique is the customer experience that you provide. Usually the model is pretty generic across the industry that you work in.
Oh, so glad you brought that up, because our customer service experience, I've trained my team for the last 16 years to really care deeply and empathetically, because my daughter, what she went through, I mean, she's now 27 years old, the mother of my grandson. She's doing really well, very healthy, but she's broken, I stopped counting at 30 bones. And so there's something cross fiber that she's missing or something. We don't know, but we tried testing her, but once she turned 18, she wouldn't get tested again. And she can't wear high heels. I try to tell an 18-year-old that, but she's 27 now and has a lot more smarts. And she gets it. She gets her health is really vital and number one. In fact, she's in that business world as well. But the experience has to be caring and empathetic. And so we have US-based customer service representatives. You can call them, live chat, email, and we're there for them and answer the questions. It's because when you are broken or fractured or injured or preparing for surgery or caring for somebody, you get a lot of questions. And the orthopedic surgeons are medical marvels, but they're not great bedside manners, and either are their staff. And it takes up too much time. So we handle those kind of questions and we make sure the experience. So for example, if the package didn't arrive on time, like the time guidelines that we gave, we completely empathize with them. And this is how we change the customer service experience. So if somebody types or calls us and says, it didn't get here on time and I missed my, blah, blah, blah. And you can just feel they're upset. And so we immediately say, I am so sorry. I'd be frustrated too. Completely changes the tone of the conversation. And so it changes their experience because we want the same thing as the customer. We want them getting their package on time correctly, and we want them loving their products. So then they talk about us. So we want the same thing. So as soon as I say that, then my team and I say that, then it completely changes the tone of the conversation. Well, how can I help? Oh, should I have looked at my post bar? I was expecting at my door, all these kind of things. So it's the customer experience is absolutely critical. I will always have a live customer service person, always.
Yeah. And especially too with the products that you sell, knowing what is the right size and,
Yes.
being able to answer questions around the colors and the patterns and all of that you offer.
Yeah, we have had somebody ask, well, what color is the navy?
Yeah.
That one, we don't answer that because everybody has different perceptions of what navy or black is, or, or reds. And so we just, you just try to do your best on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's where we say, we leave it to you to identify your personal choices. So we put it back on the customer on that one.
Yeah. I got one question here that I thought was a good one. Mick wanted to know, what are some lessons you've learned about growing a product-based business over time?
Oh my gosh, I don't think we have enough time in this. First one is changing my mindset to a manufacturer. That was a game changer. So for your audience who either creates their own products or buys products and reassembles them in some way, you're a manufacturer. And I use e-commerce as a distribution channel. So that was an absolute game changer because then I realized I really had to focus on COGS, cost of goods sold. And of course, I was asking myself, a long time ago, what the heck are COGS? And so it completely changed my focus. Number two was profit first. I am a zealot for profit first. And what happened is I read the book. And so I started doing profit first-ish for a couple of years and things just weren't working still. And then I read the book again and I realized, I have to pay myself first. Okay. So let me pay myself first. Now that's interesting because women have a hard time paying themselves first. They'll take care of everybody else and they might even put money back into the business, but they're not paying themselves first. Once I started paying myself first and realized I provided value to the company, everything changed. So the Profit First book is a wonderful book about how for the entrepreneurial brain to be able, it's not just a book, it's a method. It's a lifestyle for your business. And it allows you as an entrepreneur to focus on the future, whereas the general accepted accounting practices and bookkeepers and CPAs, my CPA is my best friend and she and I have many conversations. It's always about the past. It's always about what invoices did I pay, what POs did I do, what credit card statements, always in the past. Whereas for us entrepreneurs, our brains are always in the future. Profit First is always about the future. It's about targeted allocation percentages, what you want in the future. How do you get there? How do you make sure you have the right categories and the right percentages? To me, it just made all the sense in the world. And I was also relieved that I have an entrepreneurial brain. That was the aspect for me. So it keeps the guardrails in the system. And what it's done is it's allowed me to have very advanced decision-making skills. So I know exactly very quickly how to make a decision. For example, if I am presented with an option, whether buy out a competitor, buy a roll of fabric, it could be going to a conference. I look in my specific categories to see if I have the money in there. And then the responsibility I have moving forward that I know that I have, is this something I can do? It's a very easy decision-making process. So I don't have a lot of angst around some decisions. So it was changing my mindset to answer your question, circling back, what are the biggest things that I've learned? Changing my mindset to being a manufacturer, reading and applying Profit First and paying myself first.
And I think going back to your point too, on when you do have the separate accounts set up, then you don't become an emotional buyer too.
Exactly.
Because how many times do you go to conferences and they're like, well, today only, and we'll give you this discount. And you just
$20,000.
Yeah, and you see the room being like, oh, well, man, I got to act on this because they're going to give me a free t-shirt.
FOMO.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And when you do have those steps in place, you're not going to be drawn to the next shiny object that you think you need, but you may not need it all for your business. And I think that's a lot of things that come out of it when you're in the early stage of entrepreneurship and even early stages of your company and getting it there. We want all the answers. We want to get there as quickly as we can. And those shiny objects pop up along the way being like, hey, buy us today and we'll help you get here. But we can't really promise you, but we'll help you get here.
Well, and in fact, and that's a great point. One of the things I've done with the Profit First system is I have a category for payroll because I have employees. But what I do is if I believe I need another employee for whatever reason, doesn't matter what category, what department, I actually put in every 2 weeks, because I pay the bills and pay myself every 2 weeks, what I would pay that person every 2 weeks for 3 months. If I miss even one of those periods, one of those every 2 weeks, I'm not ready to do it. So and talk about a simple process. I mean, and then at the end of 3 months, I've got somebody I can hire if I can't find somebody or it doesn't work. Oh, I've just got the money saved in payroll. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of companies are so quickly to want to hire people as well, and because they think it will offload something, and which a lot of times it does. It saves you time here, but the company isn't advanced enough financially to be able to pay somebody on the payroll. So I really like what you do with that of, hey, I'm going to see, can I afford to have somebody, and let's test this over time to make sure I can. Because the worst thing is you hire them, you're like, hey, well, we're not doing so great and I got to let you go.
That would be that. And that has happened to me. I've made some very poor hiring decisions. And if I had had that in place in the first place, I wouldn't have made those poor hiring. Because a lot of times I would make, as all us entrepreneurs, until we really learn. I mean, these are skills we have to learn.
Yeah.
That you don't make decisions when you're in a desperate situation.
Never.
And so if you can plan ahead, it's kind of like I'm not a real fan of this old adage, but if, the time to get a credit line is when you don't need it. I'm not a big debt person, so it doesn't really apply. But the point is that the theory behind it is accurate. In other words, make decisions when you don't need it.
Yeah.
And that's, what would I do when I need this? Or what would I do when and Profit First also saved my business twice. Because I was putting money aside. I had money aside in payroll. I had money aside in the vault, as I call it. I had money put aside for operating expenses, everything. And then what happened in March of 2020? We all know the world changed. The pandemic hit, and I had seen it coming. So my product, we have what I call, when America has hurricanes or holidays, they're distracted, and my sales always go down about 15%. So weekends, holiday weekends, Christmas, any holidays, anything special, big Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. We just drop 15%. So this is something that I have always had a historical trend. So I saw this pandemic coming and I said, we're going to drop 50%. I mean, it's going to be bad. And well, I was right, but my figure was wrong. It was 90%.
Gosh.
You think about it, 2 reasons. Number one, if you remember back then, people were worried about toilet paper.
Yeah.
And what they were going to do, they weren't going to focus on getting a CastCoverz. That's it, because it is a discretionary item. It truly is. It's not a necessity like toilet paper. And then the second reason is everybody was inside and wasn't breaking as many bones. So we dropped 90% and it took us about 6 months to recover. And if I hadn't had Profit First, I would have had to shut the business down. Now, that's an extreme situation. But you know what? We all these things happen. You get cancer. A child gets cancer. There was a car wreck. Your best employee quit and took all your clients. I mean, there's so many things that happen in your world that happen. You just don't know. So you need to prepare and just have a little nest egg. And if you have that nest egg, you know what you can do is you can start focusing on other solutions to fix whatever just happened or make better. And you don't have to stress so much like, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to take care of these people? All of that. So Profit First saved that. And the second time was another, I think it was, oh yes. I'll just make this quick. Amazon lost.
Last year.
Yeah, last year, $40,000 with my inventory. Lost it. And I say that for a very good reason. And that's a big hit. And if I hadn't had my reserves, I would have been chomping at the bit I would have wondered how I was going to pay for payroll. again. You don't ever want to be in that position. How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to make payroll? Because it's distracting you. Anytime you have worries like that, it's distracting you from the goal of moving your business forward and thinking how you can market it.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I agree. I got another one for you. So Stephanie here has just starting to learn Profit First as a bookkeeper. I need to start thinking about how to apply it to my practice. If you have any advice for her, because I know one of the things that you have is with your other business, with the She Makes products, is teaching clients that are, product-based companies implement Profit First into their company.
Yes. Thank you for that question, Stephanie. And yes, that was a great segue, because I was just going to say the reason. So I started another company. It's a digital learning company called She Makes Products. And it's for women business owners who make, create, manufacture their own products, and I get them profitable so they can pay themselves what they're worth and they can scale. And it's very different to be a woman business owner, and a few cool guys, but a woman business owner with products and creating a business. There's a lot of different things that we still experience, and you need a different level of support than men do. Plus, they just don't pay themselves what they're worth. And so to answer your question, Stephanie, I think the key is identifying, first of all, where their fears are and their weaknesses are. And what I mean by weaknesses, are they not paying themselves? I was a speaker at a premier e-commerce conference recently, just last month. And after I gave my speech, which was made in the USA, it's not just a label anymore, it's a smart, profitable strategy. I had a lot of people gather around me after the speech. And one of the women I asked, are you profitable? And she said, yes. And I said, great. Are you paying yourself? Well, no. I said, you're not profitable. Yes. Well, I mean, I give myself $40, $30. No, you're not profitable. Well, no, I really am. No, you're not. Mm-hmm. Until you pay yourself what you're worth, you're not profitable. And it was just like it sunk in, and it sunk in around all the other people that were surrounding me, because that's the key. And so, Stephanie, that would be something, and anybody else that's listening, that would be something you would ask your clients. Well, you would know if you're their bookkeeper. And by the way, kudos to you for signing up, or you're starting to learn about Profit First. I encourage you to have a call with the Profit First team, because they are stellar. And that Mike has curated this team of people for the last 10 years. And there are 4,000 to 5,000 now Profit First certified professionals, and I'm one of them. They have different levels for bookkeepers and CPAs as well. And it's an amazing methodology that will really help you help your clients. And it's all about them moving forward. And you could even use what I use, which is, well, Mike does too, the entrepreneurs move, look forward, and bookkeepers and CPAs look in the back, and to see the historical trends. We're like, who cares? I'm moving forward. And so that's the methodology, works with that as well as paying themselves. So hopefully that was helpful, Stephanie.
Yeah. And I think too, with the Profit First community is so great there as well. I mean, that's kind of how we met, because I got my Profit First certification in 2020, and that's how we got connected. There's just a lot of really great people in there too. Stephanie.
Yes. Mike's got an amazing following. I mean, it really does start at the top. Great people. Mm-hmm. I haven't met a jerk yet. I mean, seriously, they're just great people. Yeah.
And I think this kind of piggybacks on your answer too, of paying yourself first from Kyler. Should you prioritize profitability from day one, or focus on growth and scale first?
Oh, I love this question. Actually, what you do is you prioritize profitability from day one. And how can you do that? Particularly if you're just starting a company. Well, actually, you learn the methodology. You learn about, in my case, in my company, it's called the She Makes Profits method, which I got Mike's blessing. It's very much profit first, but I've added elements for manufacturing companies and product-based companies. All about the COGS and how you have to make sure that that is taken care of first. The profitability is key. And in fact, I just had a conversation last week with a young woman who is starting a company, and she's got her CFO lined up. She's got her CMO lined up. She's got this and she's got that. She's got everything all lined up beautifully, perfectly. She's got really a great arsenal of brain power behind her. But what was really interesting, she said, yes, and this is how she did it. Yes, I have my CFO telling me I need to, spend this much, which is always down here. And then I have my CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, telling me I need to spend this much. And I said, oh my gosh. And I used her name. I said, look at, you're like this. I said, you're in the middle. You're the one that has to make that decision. If you don't have the right information, you will not be able to help make that decision as a leader, as a CEO of your company. Excuse me. And a light bulb went off for her. So it's really important that you've got to be profitable first. I had a client a year and a half ago that it was a family apparel company. So it's parents and young children, toddlers and babies, combined apparel, matching apparel. And they went from the first dollar they got, they understood because they got prepared for the system. So the first dollar they got, they put a certain percentage in profit, certain percentage owner's pay, certain percentage in debt, because you can do it with the profit first system, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very important. And both of those companies and a couple others that I've also helped are absolutely on the right trajectory. And that's the important thing. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for the question.
And I think too, one of the things is making sure you put money away for taxes, because business owners at the end of the year, they get the bill from their CPA and, hey, you owe this. And they're like, oh, well, I don't have the funds to pay for this. And I think that's a unique part that Profit First does bring in. And what you exercise with your clients is we got to put a certain percentage away to help cover your taxes when it comes.
I'm so glad you brought this up. And it's so classic that you would bring this up, because as a bookkeeper, you would definitely do this. And the reason I didn't is because, and this is so important to your listeners, it's so automatic for me. I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Because it's taken out. It's part of the plan. And it's taken out and it's just sitting there growing. And occasionally I'll have extra money left over. If you do it right, you shouldn't have that much money left over. But if you, I'll have money left over, and it can apply towards my quarterly tax liabilities that I have. So there's a lot of, it is the nicest feeling to have, because when I first started the business, I remember when I hit my $100,000 revenue mark, annual revenue. That's a big deal. I mean, yay, anybody that's hit six figures, that's huge. That's a big deal. But I knew something was wrong. I mean, I just knew something was wrong. I didn't know what to ask. I mean, I was really lost. This is a good 14 years ago. And, and my husband was saying, where's the money, honey? You got 100,000, where's the money? And I was like, I don't know. And my CPA was saying it was profitable. Well, where did the money go? I don't get it. And I didn't get it. And so I cobbled together $6,000, but really $6,000 to go into the family coffers for 100,000. And then I think it was a month later, he said, okay, so where's the money for taxes? What? I mean, I knew all of these things are what new business owners actually, they're so excited about their product, the one thing that they have. Oh, look at this. And they sell it, and they sell 100,000. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now what? I'm in business. Now what? I don't know what to do. And they don't even know what questions to ask. And that's where I was. In fact, I went to SCORE, which is an agency of the SBA. And it meant at the time, Society Corps of Retired Executives. And I can say this, and I'll tell you why, but they're old white guys. And I went in as a good 15 years ago, and I said, okay, I've got this business and I make this product and I use, Amazon on my own website. They just looked at me like I had three heads. They couldn't help me. Help me. And I said to myself, when I make it, I am going to become one of the SCORE mentors, which I did about 5 years ago. And they funneled so much business to me because I was a woman product business owner, and I was profitable, and I used e-commerce channels, and they still didn't. And that's why I said I could say they're an old white guy, because I became an old white girl with them. But, great organization, free service, by the way, fabulous mentoring, really is. If you get the right people, there's some people that probably shouldn't be, but more than likely there's more that can. Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting because I got a new client last week that is very large e-commerce company, and they have not set up anything because they've just been so focused on selling their product. So they don't have any financials set up yet. They're just using their Shopify dashboards to kind of navigate. And then, you can export and make a CSV of the credit card expenses and kind of get an idea of what was going on. So it goes back to that point of a lot of times founders get so focused on, I got to sell my product, and not taking care of the insides of the company in the beginning. And this is a 3-year-old company, so they are just getting going and gaining momentum. So it's going to be a blast to build out for them. But I would say how important it is to have those systems and processes in, and even and whatever methodologies are decided to bring into, like profit first, what methodology, how are we going to break up your percentages that get allocated to these specific accounts? So like for them, they got to file taxes for last year, but it always takes longer because their CPA has to piecemeal and go through and be like, okay. And so I said, okay, for 25, we will have these done on time, and your CPA can file on time. Like it will be a lovely experience for them because it's going to be true financials. And so I'm excited for them to be able to see from a really clear perspective of what are my true cogs.
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, congratulations.
Thank you.
And condolences for that. I don't know you like that, but that is a classic entrepreneurial move. We just start with our product and start selling it and figure out, and then all of a sudden we realize we don't have the systems, the processes, the back end. We don't have the financials right. It's in the shoebox. It's sort of on a spreadsheet. This happens way more than you realize. And so you're in good company. If you're there, it doesn't mean it's the good company. It doesn't mean it's the company you need to be in. Now that you've started the business, you really need to start acting like the CEO and get everything fixed and up to speed. The other thing is that I teach in my She Makes Profits method is getting so familiar with your P&L and your balance sheet and your cash flow statement that you have good conversations with your bookkeeper and your CPA, not like, what do you mean by net margin? You should know what gross margin and net margin. You should know what the benchmarks are. You should also know a lot of other things. Those are the things that I teach at She Makes Products.
And I think that's a lot of what we talk about too when we look at, hey, what percentage of income is going to each of our categories on the P&L? And then you're kind of making decisions from there of what to grow or maybe cut back on each month or each quarter. And I find that this will be really neat for these guys to be able to see in their company. But I see, and I don't know if you see this in your She Makes Products, but a lot of people that enter the e-commerce world, because it is an easier platform to get set up on and sell your product, that you do get a lot of people with phenomenal ideas, but they just don't understand how to set up the business. They can go sell a product all day long and be extremely profitable, but not knowing where to start.
I have a really sad story about that. So I got the business started, as I mentioned, and my daughter and I walk around and, people would stop us on the street. Well, friends said, oh my gosh, I love this. I want to join in the business. I want to join in the business. I want to join in the business. And she just kept hounding me in a good way, but she kept hounding me. And I thought, okay. And the reasons were not good reasons why I said, okay. And we went within 3 months, we went to a trade show, big trade show, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, huge trade show. And it was quite successful. And we were driving home because it was in Vegas and we were in California. We were driving home, and then I dropped her off, and then I started calling her, texting her, emailing. I don't know, 15 years ago, 17 years ago, what'd you do? Anyway, and she basically ghosted me. There was no reply for 2, 3, 4 days. I'd knock on the door at her house and all this kind of stuff. Well, during this time, my CPA was saying, you need a partnership agreement on that. And I said, oh yeah, I'll get to that. You need a partnership agreement, Annette. Well, we're friends. It's okay. Annette, you need a partnership agreement. Yeah, we'll get to that. Sure enough, she came back from the show, felt that I was too businesslike. Those are her words. And didn't want to be in business with me. And she wanted a lot of money for her efforts. And just put it this way, I wrote her a check and said goodbye. She did come back to me later and said that she was way off her rocker. But the point is that my CPA was right about the partnership agreement, and Christy is right about processes and systems, because that's when you get bogged down, when all of a sudden you don't have accounting, you don't have a CRM, you don't have inventory controls, you don't have whatever your systems that you need. If you don't have those in place, all of a sudden you're focusing on that. and you're so much of your time to try to make up for lost time. Oh, is that tough? And it is hard because you don't even know what to ask, and you don't even know what you're going to need. And that's how I felt. But I do know that you need financial systems, you need a CRM, and if you've got a product business, you need an inventory control. I mean, those are the three basics, and then you can get started from there. Sure, you can do social media kind of, hybrid thing, but in terms of another system. But don't skip that step. And we just get so excited about this.
I know.
And one thing that I talk about is the support spectrum that in my She Makes Products business. So on one side, you've got the, yay, go for it, yeah. And then you've got the, who do you think you are? You're not smart, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we already know about those negative Neds and Nellies. We just kind of, even if they're really close to you, you still barricade them. And I do talk about this in my She Makes Profits methodology. But do you think that the ones on the right are good for you too? No, not really, because they may not have the experience. They don't have... basically they boo you up falsely and prop you up falsely. And so you move ahead. And those are probably your friends and family that don't have the experience that you need. So you need the support that's in the middle, somebody who has your best interest at heart, but is not emotionally attached. There's a difference. There's a big difference. And somebody who's got the experience that can walk you through some of these issues. And so you really need about 3 to 5 people, that's tops, that are your core people. It can be your bookkeeper, your CPA, it can be your lawyer, it can be your business coach, it can be a very trusted mentor, but it's got to be somebody who's got your best interest in heart, who has experience, and who can weigh the options with you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because I've had bad company come in, and all of a sudden the company ends up going a different way, and I didn't intend it to go there, but you start hearing the talking voices. And and a lot of times you can even have that come from family, because they can be on the flip side of it, kind of jealous that you're going somewhere they want to go, and they can't handle that, and they'll negative talk, or to your point, they're on the other side, your biggest cheerleader, without knowing exactly what you need, but it's nice to have them cheering you on.
Well, I always say you need friends and family to give you your boost, but don't use those as your decision-making criteria. That's the key. In fact, I knew that when I started the support element, because I had people going, yay, and then I had, and so what I did is I did some research. It was very interesting. I researched, like CastCoverz or something like that. This is Google, again, 17 years ago. Googled it, didn't find anything, created it, started it. A year later, I was, Googling something again, maybe 6 months later. And sure enough, here was a company, and they had been doing it. If I had seen that, I would not have started CastCoverz. So I believe there might have been some divine intervention on that, or Google searching capabilities, one or both. And she eventually folded, though, because I blew up CastCoverz in a good way. So.
But it's interesting how little things like that, you as an entrepreneur can easily get discouraged and be like, well, I guess somebody else is doing it, I won't do it. I mean, because I've had that in the past too. I've fought different, mindset issues on, well, yeah, that'd be a great idea, but I see there's 10 other people out there, and, they told me the ocean isn't blue, so I obviously couldn't go there. All the books that you read and all,
May I speak to that?
Yeah, go for it.
So I get this all the time, and I use 2 examples. I said mascara. Again, remember, most of my clients are on the She Makes Products side are women, but whenever I'm talking to a group, conference, whatever it is, there are 2 examples I always give: mascara and ketchup. Okay, how many mascaras are out there?
Oh, millions, it seems
like.
I
mean, it's just like hundreds probably, right? And how many ketchups are out there? At least a dozen, if not more. Okay, ketchup is tomato, water, and sugar.
Yeah, there's nothing
special.
They're
just packaged differently. They might have the formula, maybe a little more water than others, more chocolate, but ketchup's ketchup. And then mascara. There's mascara for waterproof. There's mascara for night clubbing. There's mascara that's blue, mascara that's pink. I mean, but it still covers your lashes. So here's the difference. So I would never buy stay up all night clubbing mascara, because that's just not who I am. But I would buy the easy on, easy off, just get it done kind of mascara. Ketchup, I don't know, maybe the thicker kind. But the point is that you find your people. And so don't let that deter you because somebody's out there. If you've got a different message, a different way of presenting your product or your business. So another example is one of my competitors came out and she had the name, of course, my company name is CastCoverz. And my slogan is feel better, heal better. And it's got a lot of white space and it's happy. And it's like, you got this, but we can make this okay. So she came out with the title of Pretty Hurt. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that good? I gave her kudos.
That is good.
Really good. And so I went in and looked at it, and this was a good 12 years ago, at least 15 years ago. Yeah, 15 years ago. And it was all blood and skulls, really interesting designs, but and guess what? She ended up, people loved her design so much, they wanted her to do it, put the designs on surfboards and skateboards.
Oh, wow.
So that's where she ended up going. But the point is that, well, if you really like skulls and blood, you'll go over there. But if you want something to, that's fun and functional, that's CastCoverz.
Yeah.
The other example is, I had a competitor come in, this is maybe 8 years ago, and call his company the Cast Cover, which, well, again, I'll give him kudos. That was brilliant because he's completely dovetailing on my my name. Because if I went in and built a company if I built a restaurant next to McDonald's and called it the McDonald's, yeah, I'd be sued.
You would, yeah.
So the point is that I had a few conversations with him and just outmarketed him. He's not in business anymore either.
Yeah.
So those are some of those. So again, mascara and ketchup, just think about that. If you've got some really unique idea, make sure you position and market it well, just so it speaks to you and something that you can talk about for 10 years. That's the other thing that I always say, because I could never do skulls and blood for 10 years or
no, that wouldn't be you at all.
So, but I can, here I am 17 years later, still talking about feel better, heal better with CastCoverz products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mick has another really good question too. What have you learned about building a brand that truly resonates with customers while also building a business that's financially stable, really?
Wow, Mick, that is, let's unpack that. So I've learned that building a brand that resonates with you first, because the customers that like what you are saying will be naturally attracted to you. And I'm not talking about, the universe will come, I'm a woman of faith, but you need to be able to speak to your people and your people will come. It's just like the Pretty Herd. If, the skulls and blood people will go to her. Where I think I like this lighter, brighter approach over here with CastCoverz and building a business. And so start with your messaging first, and with profit first, you get your profit first. So it's actually the same concept, Nick. It's something that you can absolutely focus on. Okay, I have to find a way to resonate well with what I'm feeling and thinking and what I want to build, but I also need to pay myself first. Very, very important that you maintain the profitability and paying yourself first, because without that, your business can easily get off the rails. I hope that helped.
Perfect. And then Kyler had one other one just around, what are some overlooked costs that eat into profitability?
Great questions. Thanks, Kyler. So typically it's over purchasing of inventory items if you have a product business. In operating expenses, it's often dues and subscriptions of multiple subscriptions. So in other words, redundant subscriptions. So for example, Christy uses Restream, which is, a platform for live interviews. There are there's dozens of others. Perhaps you've got 2 or 3 that you signed up for and you forgot about. So you look at your dues and subscriptions, and you make sure that they aren't redundant. And if they are redundant, make sure you just cancel one of them. So that's another. The third area is personal expenses. So if you pay yourself first, you have to be able to take care of your needs, of course. As you're building a business until you're getting truly profitable with the net profit margins that you need, your wants come at that point. So watch how much you're drawing. So for example, if you have a lease on a high-end car, SUV, whatever it is, maybe you don't need that high end. Maybe you've got other expenses that are personal, that are your personal expenses that are affecting the draw from the business. So you need to look at that as well. Those are the main areas that I see: the product, the dues and subscriptions, the redundant costs. It can be in other areas too, but primarily found in dues and subscriptions. That's the thing that kind of helps your business. Maybe you've got other redundancies. I would every quarter review your chart of accounts in QuickBooks or wherever you are, your chart of accounts, and look actually at every single line item and see what, and it's like, you'd be surprised how much you have that you don't realize that's redundant or not necessary. You're not using. It doesn't even have to be redundant. Maybe you're just not even using it anymore. I had a subscription to an apparel company for the longest time, and I finally deleted it because I wasn't using it. Christy knows that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, hello, yeah. And I had good intentions, but really, if you have not using it in 3 months to 6 months, cancel it.
Yeah.
It's just not.
And I think they hide in there so easily because they're, low subscription costs in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, $20 here, $30 here, and you don't really think about it. And then when you start going through, you're like, oh, I haven't used this.
Mm-hmm.
This needs to
So
go.
the profitability, another thing I'd like to mention real quick is on the COGS issue. COGS traditionally has been just basically material and labor. That's all it's been. But today's contemporary selling environment requires so much more. And what I mean by that is landed costs. If you manufacture or bring your product in overseas. So what is your landed cost? Your customs, duties, taxes, tariffs. It's a big issue. I gave a seminar on that. There's ways to get around that, to mitigate that, not get around, mitigate that. But also you've got platform fees. You've got, your expenses. I'm not talking about advertising. That's in operating expenses. But you've got fees that are refund fees, storage fees, fees to Amazon just gives you fees for whatever. Or all of them do that. And so you have to have all of those. And packaging. Packaging is another one of the selling in today's contemporary selling environment that people don't think of. You have something that's a package. What does that cost? You must include that in your COGS. People used to put that in the operating expenses. If you package something, I don't care where it goes. If you package it differently, direct to consumer, if you package it differently for B2B, it's got to be included. And then the shipping to the customers. And I'm not talking about the freight. The freight's already in there in the landed cost, the freight of the raw materials, the raw goods, your particular product that you have, that, where it goes. It's the shipping to a customer. We all know shipping's gotten much more expensive. So whether you have a very small item or you have a really big item that needs to be, I'm not going to pick it up, but a piece of sculpture, it's big. It's got to be shipped to the customer. So you got to have all of those in your COGS.
Yeah. And I think some things too with the shipping is you get a lot of companies that offer free shipping. Mm-hmm. And especially in the beginning years, they're like, well, okay, well, it was free. I'm like, no, it's still an expense to you. And you have to make sure that the margins cover that cost of free shipping to your client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's all part of that COGS, and
it is.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I teach, and she makes.
And that's what you teach. Yeah. And I think that's what's so important is COGS is such a loaded amount that goes into mm-hmm. it. And it's never, if you didn't go to school to be an accountant like me, you would never even really know much about what goes in it.
Oh, absolutely. When I first started CastCoverz, shipping was actually a profit center for us. Now I'm looking to break even. Seriously, yeah. That just shows the ebb and flow of business. And you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to say, okay, and that happened to me. The Chinese found me and copied me 3 years ago on Amazon. I'm surprised it took them that long. And but I've still out hustled them. I mean, they've broken in the market a little bit, but there's something about made in USA and just having that longevity and that institutional background, with CastCoverz that makes a difference with many buyers, not all, but many.
Yeah, but many. A lot of people are looking for that too, and mm-hmm. it is still unique compared to what's out there.
Yes. Let me see my notes if there's anything else. No, I think we're covering a lot of that I wanted.
Yeah, a lot of it. Do you have one last one from Mick just about mentoring? What have you, or no, not this one. Sorry. He had a question about finding, how do you find essentially a good mentor, and what have you looked for in, finding somebody to kind of help you along your journey?
So that's a great question. I mentioned Score. That's a possible. It's free, by the way. It's free. And and their goal, their mission is actually to be in a long-term relationship with a client, like for a year. They want to do it for 6 months to a year. So Score, you just go to Score and whatever you're looking for, financial coach, business coach, packaging coach, legal experience, whatever it is, and they help set you up. But if you don't want to go that route or you want something different, it's who are you following right now that seems to intrigue you. For example, with Christy, maybe a lot of you are following Christy and you're thinking, I really like what she says. I like the people she's bringing on. She makes sense when she's talking about solutions and options. I think I want to have her coach me. And the same thing applies with me. People hear what I say and they often check into what my options are. That's how I've done it. And so, for example, with Mike McAllowitz with Profit First, he and I are now friends because, I just advocated so much for Profit First that we started strategizing on different projects together. And he was actually helping me or introduced me to his developmental editor for a book that I was going to write that I decided not to. And that's another thing that you need to learn as a CEO and as a business, what to say no to. That's a whole other topic that Christine.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I hope that was helpful, Mick.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I think we hit all the things we wanted to cover today. And I would say to anybody out there that's listened, if you are a product-based business and you're needing help with it, Annette is always taking on new clients in that part to kind of help coach and get your business up to where it needs to be, implementing the product or Profit First methodology, all of that. So thank you so much today.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. This has been fun. I know we could have gone on and on and on.
Could.
I'm glad at the time. It's like, okay, we got to wrap it up here.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.